Good morning. How is everybody today? Great. Good to see everybody. For those of you who are guests and don't know us, I'm Craig Hirsch, a Florida Bar Board certified wills, trusts, and estates attorney with Shepard, Brett, Stewart, Hirsch, Kinsey, and Hill. That's actually all written on that little pen that you have. Isn't that amazing? We got all those names on that pen. And I'm here today with one of my law partners, Michael Hill, and an associate, Blake Hampton, and many of our staff people. So I want to thank you all for spending your valuable time coming here today. And we're going to do a workshop for our maintenance clients, which you all, most of you are of, that we call True Wealth or False Wealth. Because this is a theme that I've heard from many of you over the course of, many years. And I thought it might be a good topic for us to talk about. But I'm going to need your help today. Will you all help me? Yeah. Okay, because Mike, there's Mike. How's the sound? Are we doing okay with the sound? Mike is going to have a roaming microphone that's going to go into, roaming mic that's going to go into the feed. So I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to want you guys to help me with your answers. Okay? Don't be shy. There's no wrong answers here. And I'm also going to be writing some things on this board, and I realize that some of you may not be able to see it, so I'll bark it out best I can. And you also have the handouts, which are the slides, so let's hope that we can get through that okay. So, to start talking about true wealth or false wealth, observations to consider. Kaylee Rogers blew a $3 million lottery jackpot from 2003 on shopping, cocaine, friends, and breast augmentation, and by 2009 was working as a maid. William Bud Post squandered his 1988 Pennsylvania prize of more than $16 million on houses, vehicles, bad businesses before going bankrupt and serving time for firing a shotgun at a bill collector before his death in 2006. According to a 2011 Smart Money magazine article, a large segment of Florida lottery winners went bankrupt within 5 years of cashing in their winning ticket. Does that surprise anyone? No, but that was pretty emphatic, wasn't it? No. Why? Why would these lottery winners lose their money? What? That's great. And we got that on tape. Let's give that one an applause. They didn't know me. Okay. Why? Mike, why don't you find somebody? Why? Someone tell me why.
No plan.
Okay. They didn't earn it. Right?
Craig, we got a no plan back here. No planning, no proper
No planning. What else?
They never had any money to start with. They didn't know what to do with it.
They didn't see a financial advisor. Okay. Excuse my bad writing. What else? They're losers to start with because they're playing the lottery. Okay. My teenage daughters would do something like this. What else do we have back there? They didn't know what to do with it.
Victims of bad advice.
Victims of bad advice.
Poor choices.
Poor choices. These are all good.
Relatives who were needy and greedy.
Relatives. Okay, we're on the good track. So it doesn't surprise anybody that they lost their wealth. So let's talk for a moment about traditional estate planning. Okay? The stuff that Mike and I did for you, which is good stuff, right? It's good, better be good stuff. But what does estate planning do? Traditional estate planning. Your will, your trust, what's it do? It divides up your wealth among your family members, doesn't it? If you're married and you leave assets to your spouse, it might be held in a trust for your spouse, or it might go over to him or her for his or her lifetime. And then at the spouse's death, what typically happens? Goes your kids. Sometimes they spend it. Sometimes it goes outright. It's just divided. If you have 2 kids, divided into 2 shares. 3 kids, 3 shares. And then if sometimes, though, it's held in trust for them. And most of the time, they're their own trustees that you set up. But other times, what? You might have a bank or trust company set up to act as trustee. So let me ask you guys this. Tell me your worries. Because a lot of you have told Mike and I these worries personally, but generally speaking, you don't have to be specific about your children or your family. What are your worries about when you pass away, or you and your spouse pass away, or you and your loved one pass away, your partner, and it all goes to your kids? What's your worries? They're going to squander it, I heard. They're going to squander it. Divorce. They're going to lose it through a court proceeding, maybe. What I heard someone else make it similar to a lottery. Did someone say that? Yeah. It's like a lottery. You're ahead of me. Right? What are your other worries? They don't appreciate it.
Arguing among children.
Arguing. Wait, I heard, what did I hear? Unexpected relatives? Unexpected relatives? You haven't met your daughter-in-law yet? Your son-in-law? Can we say in-laws, maybe? In-laws, right? In-laws. Right, what are the in-laws going to do? Aren't they going to help save it? What other worries? Do we get them all?
Government taxes.
Taxes, the government. I'm not worried. Good. Someone said I'm not worried.
One big worry is remarriage, that it ends up going to some people you don't ever have intended to.
Okay, unintended beneficiaries are a worry. Wait, what did I hear? Accidents. So basically, you're worried about a lot of these things have to deal with your loss of control, right? You're no longer around. A lot of these have to deal with what? When you pass away and your will leaves amounts to your family, or your trust leaves amounts to your family, and what don't they know typically? What doesn't your family know? Your wishes. Do they know how much you're worth? No. Most of them don't, right? Would that be a safe assumption? You're afraid to talk to them about it, right? Money's kind of a taboo subject, isn't it? Why are you afraid to talk to them about that? We'll talk about this a little bit more. Because they want it. They want to borrow it. They want to spend it. They want it now. Right. They don't think your demise. Some of it too is pride on your part, right? I've heard this. Tell me if I'm wrong about this. I've heard, I don't want to be a burden to my children. How many of you have said that before? Right? So typically, money's not talked about all that frequently, right? You don't sit down at Thanksgiving and say, Hey, Johnny, did you know that I'm worth $3 million? You don't have to worry about me going to the nursing home. I got plenty, right? That's not a typical conversation, is it? No. So they don't know too much about what you're worth, partly because you don't want to burden them with the information, and maybe partly because you don't want them to have certain expectations that they shouldn't have yet. Isn't that true? Okay. So here's what we have with many of you. And even if you have a more modest estate, you know, you don't need millions. Let's say you have an estate worth $800,000 and you have 2 kids. That's $400,000 going to each one of them when you pass away, right? They don't expect it. So what's it like to them when you die? It's the lotto, isn't it? It's the lotto for them. Right?
Not if they're smart.
What's that?
Not if they're smart.
Not if they're smart. That's right. That's what we're going to try to get to today. So it's the lotto. And what did we just establish just moments ago? What do we expect lotto winners to do? We expect them to lose it. So what makes you think that your kids are going to be any different? I mean, hopefully they didn't fall far from the tree. When I say, what's your wealth, what do most people say? Don't get ahead of me, because you know, you've read some of my articles and you know what the slides are going to say. What do most people say when we say, what's your wealth consist of?
Financial assets.
Right. Money. What else? Property. What else? Investments. What else?
Adult toys like boats and RVs and
Toys. Boats. That Lamborghini you're driving around, is that a toy? Okay. What else? Jewelry. Okay. Intellectual property. Jewelry we got. That's good. So that's what most people define as wealth, right? So when you started out as a young person, well, tell my story. We'll get to it a little bit when we get to the exercise. You know, my folks, when I was 18 years old, dropped me off on the steps of the dormitory at the University of Florida and said, son, we'd love to help you, but we can't. Mom and Dad had just been through some really bad financial times. So I was on my own with about $200 in the checking account. And here I was at the University of Florida, sitting on the dorms. How was I going to get through? I did it, obviously. I put myself through, I got degrees in accounting and law. I left Gainesville with 3 degrees and a wife. And $100 in the bank account, that's right. That was over 7 years. I essentially did an 8-year program in 7 years because you need the Masters of Accounting to sit for your CPA exam. But how did I make my money? I bussed tables, I waited tables, I tossed pizzas, I bagged groceries. Later, when I got my accounting degree, I actually prepared tax returns. I researched papers for local lawyers. I had actually a good little tax preparation business before I left. I actually sold it to a CPA on my way out of town. I went into an office of a CPA. I said, "Do you want to buy my tax practice?" And they said, "What, are you kidding me?" You know, I was a 24-year-old kid at the time, you know, at law school, and I had a printout of all my clients. I made a few $1,000s. Oh, here's an interesting thing. I was fairly entrepreneurial. In my fraternity house, we had jobs. When you lived in the fraternity house, you had to take one of the service jobs. And I quickly figured out that the best service job was the football ticket chairman. Because at the University of Florida, you know, the kids, all the students had little football season cards, and my job was to collect all the guys' cards over the course of the week. I went to the ticket office, and they assigned us a block that rotated. And the ticket ladies gave me the tickets, and everybody pounded on my doors at night to get their tickets, but the ones that didn't come by, guess what? I got a scalp. Now, scalping at the time was illegal, not anymore, StubHub and everything else. But in any event, I figured out, and I also figured out that if I invited a sorority to come, it was extra special because I got all their ticket stubs too. The guys were really happy because I invited all these cute girls to come with us, and then half the girls never showed up because they went shopping or something. So it gave me all that much more tickets to scalp. So I didn't want to be out on University Avenue holding the tickets in the air because, you know, there were undercover policemen would come and try to buy and you could get arrested. So I went to the local bagel store and sat there and read a paper, and everybody knew that's where I was. And you'd come and you'd negotiate for your tickets with me. Now, the other thing I did is I used to bring donuts and coffee to the ticket ladies in the ticket booth every Monday morning when I dropped off the ticket stubs. Why? Guess which fraternity happened to get the best rotation in the block? So I got, you know, it's one of those, you know, when you need to, you have to, so you do. So, you know, what I'm getting to, you know, that's a life experience, isn't it? That taught me something, didn't it? And I'm sure all of you can point to things of your own that are similar, can't you? That's my guess. So when we talk about wealth, money, property, investments, is that true wealth? Yes, I heard yes. Okay. I once had an entrepreneurial client tell me this. He said, I could lose everything tomorrow and make it back within 3 years. Because, he said, I have, you know, my experience, my education, my values, my connections. He said, so is it, when you consider that lottery winners might lose it all tomorrow because of poor choices, can't you say that money and investments in property are really false wealth? Because if you don't have true wealth behind it, you could lose it, right? The example of the $16 million lotto winner. So when we're talking about true wealth, what might we characterize as true wealth? Education.
Personal values.
Values. Health. That's right. My wife's 98-year-old grandmother, who just passed away last year, used to say, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Right? Isn't that true? You can be worth all the money in the world, but if you're hooked up to respirators and such, what's it matter? Your health, your education, your values. What else? What's that?
Ambition.
Ambition. That's a good one. What? You guys are good. You guys really helped me today.
Knowledge.
Family, integrity. Oh. Attitude. Right. If you have these things, aren't you likely to also have, whoops, did I go forward to? Aren't you likely to have true wealth? Now, did your true wealth, you guys have these things. I know it because Mike and I have dealt with all of you. You guys are the class. You guys are the cream of the crop. You wouldn't need us if you weren't, right? So, your true wealth, did it all come from positive experiences? Hardly. Mike, find someone. Does someone want to give us a 1-minute example of a hard knock that they took that led them to their success? Is there anyone out there who wants to share a story? Over here. Wait, hold on. Let Mike get to you. We have Phil Donahue on his way.
When I first got out of the military.
No, it's on for us, but not. You have to speak up for everybody else.
But when I first got out of the military, I didn't know what I was going to do, and I wound up getting a job selling vacuum sweepers.
Selling vacuum
Selling vacuum
sweepers right out of the military.
And I was over a lady's house one day, and she was in her nightgown and hair curlers, and I used to give them a free case of Pepsi to get inside your door, so I didn't have to talk my way in.
A free case of Pepsi to get inside the door.
Yeah,
That was
I
good.
had to pay for. And once I got inside the house, the lady flipped out on me once I tried to demonstrate this cleaner, and she picked up a broom, started swinging a broom at me, and I'm in my suit and tie, and
So you got a broom being
I
swung.
made 4 loops around the inside of her house with her swinging this broom at me, and I finally ran outside and got out on the sidewalk and thought to myself, I don't need this, and I went back, and then I went to school.
Okay.
I mean, that was
So
the
your
trigger.
story
I said,
is
I don't
that-
need this stuff.
Yeah, your bad experience trying to be a salesman led you to seek a higher education, right? That's really good. That's really good. I mean, that's a sort of thing that led to your true wealth. Anyone else? So, not only did your true wealth come from positive experiences and negative experiences, didn't others contribute to it? Your parents contributed to it. How did your parents contribute to it? By example. They paid for your education. Who else? I'm sorry? Government. How did the government contribute to your true? Oh, okay. Government job. Gotcha. And you were drafted. Okay.
Veterans Bill of Rights certainly is government. Otherwise, it didn't go to college.
The Bill of Rights. That's right. Yeah. I mean, we have our government system really does foster entrepreneurship and wealth creation. So, and many of us had mentors, didn't we? We had teachers, mentors, other people who helped us along the way. Now, when a mentor helps us along the way, what are they doing? They're communicating with us. They're giving us their wisdom, their knowledge, their values, right? So, anyone, these are just little pictures of me, obviously. You know, am I the same guy that I was as that little kid with the fishing pole? Or the guy with the 25-year-old, how old was I there? Probably about 23. The 23-year-old guy with his arm around his wife-to-be? Or, you know, the guy who now bikes to Key West from here because he's crazy? You accumulated all of your knowledge and your wealth experiences, your true wealth over time, didn't you? Right? And you know, you're not the same person today that you were 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago. You keep accumulating more and more, don't you? But what happens? Does that get transferred to your kids? Some of it does. I mean, you lead by example. But do they listen to you when you start telling your stories? I know my kids don't. Oh, Dad, here he goes again.
Grandchildren love the stories.
Right, grandchildren love the stories. So when we're talking about transferring your true wealth, that's the real trick, isn't it? But before we can transfer your true wealth, what we need to really talk about, and this is the exercise I'm going to have you all go through today, is you got to first identify what exactly your true wealth is. Doesn't everyone have a little different true wealth? Everybody has different life experiences. Everyone has different, values, ambitions, all those sorts of things that we identified as your true wealth. Everybody has different aspects of, don't they? So I know we can't, in brevity of time, we can't get through all of this. But you all have this piece of paper in your packet that it's entitled "I've Come a Long Way, Baby." Let's fill this out together. And I know you won't have time to do maybe all 10 of these, but let's do a little exercise to see if we can kind of identify what your particular true wealth might be. You all have pens. So the first thing I want you to do is, over proudest accomplishments and obstacles overcome, I want you to just brainstorm, and you don't have to put them in any particular order. Number one doesn't necessarily mean the most important one. But what I want you to do is brainstorm what you might consider to be your proudest accomplishments or the obstacles you've overcome. And what I've done on the board here, and it's also in your packet, although I know the writing's fairly small. Let me just kind of give you some examples of what I put for me. I put, the story I just told you, I put myself through college and law school. I consider to be one of my proudest accomplishments. I married Patty. I raised 3 daughters. Well, they're almost raised. 3 teenage daughters. I could put in there very easily that I'm living in a house with 3 teenage daughters and surviving. That could be one of my proudest accomplishments. I finished a half Ironman triathlon. I've built a successful practice. I saw my mother through her illness of leukemia twice. She's had 2 bone marrow transplants and survived at the MD Anderson Cancer Center, which put the whole family through, including my mom, of course, through a lot. I put down that I passed the CPA exam, that I passed the Florida Bar, that I passed the board certification exam for wills, trusts, and estates. I survived a bike accident that nearly cost me my life 9 years ago, 8.5 years ago. I helped start a trust company. And, I've had some very good friends die, even at my age. When I was 25 years old, a fraternity brother and roommate of mine died of a brain aneurysm at the age of 24. And just last year, one of my best friends here in town passed away, complications relating to a brain tumor. So when you put down your proudest accomplishments and obstacles that you've overcome, does anyone want to share any of theirs they have? Come on, folks. Someone has something they want to tell me about. Go right ahead.
I think the words trust but verify really hit the nail on the head.
Trust but verify.
It's good to trust people because basically people are honest and good.
Good to trust people.
But they aren't all right.
Okay.
You put a lot of trust in people, if you don't verify that they're going to fulfill their...
Okay. Trust but verify. Now, how is that one of your proudest accomplishments?
On the street.
Yeah. Okay. How is that one of your proudest accomplishments? Trust but verify.
Well, I overcame the part of having somebody put me out on the street.
You overcame
I had a
that.
very successful career with a non-compete clause that the stupid government enforced at that time.
Okay.
So I created a good business on my own back, and the boss took it and threw me out. And
So
I
you-
had to start over again, and I was locked out of the business that I knew best.
So you created a business, your boss locked you out, had a non-compete clause, and you were out, but that was one of your obstacles that you overcame that led to your success. That's very good.
And I learned to go on commission.
Learn to go on commission. That's good. Anyone else have something they'd like to share? Proudest accomplishment? Doesn't have to be major. Then, yes.
Probably teaching for 34 years.
Teaching for 34
and
years.
positively affecting a lot of children.
Positive. That's great. Positively affecting lives. What grades did you teach?
A lot of them.
A lot of them. Okay.
Mostly third grade. I
Mostly
really
third. Well,
enjoyed
that's a
that.
cute age. 3rd grade. That's great. Anyone else have anything? There's one in the back there, Mike.
Overcoming a divorce.
Overcoming a divorce, he said.
Overcoming a divorce. So you all writing down some things, some examples of what your proudest accomplishments are? Biggest obstacles you've overcome?
We raised 3 kids. They left home and didn't come back.
Raised 3 kids who left home and didn't come back. That deserves a round of applause, especially from a parent of a teenager. Okay. It's widowhood. Who said that? Oh, learning to live alone. That's tough. That's a hard one. So once you put down some of those proudest accomplishments and obstacles you've overcome, the next thing to consider is the reason why it's one of your proudest accomplishments. This is all an exercise that leads you to where I'm trying to take you today. For example, why is putting myself through law school and college important? Why was that important to me? Why is that one of my biggest accomplishments? because I consider it to be the setting the stage for my success. It made me very independent. Gave me a lot of confidence. I had a friend who I hope doesn't see this videotape, who was one of my roommates. And his father was a bigwig in a big Fortune 500 company. So he didn't have to struggle the way I did. But because life was easier, I think later life became harder for him. Does that make sense? You know, things like seeing my mom through her illness, why would I consider that to be an obstacle that I overcame that was important to my true wealth? Well, it's because I had to play parent to my parent for the first time. You know, they call you, I think my generation, and I'm sure you all went through this too, I'm the sandwich generation, right? I like to say I have 5 teenagers, but 2 of them are in their 70s. So, and I'm not running them down, but I mean, they've both been sick and they need a lot of help. So that takes some time. When my death of friends, why was that so important to me? What does that teach you when someone dies at the age of 24, another friend of yours dies when he's only 52?
You're not in shallow.
Yeah, you're not immortal. I'm not immortal, as much as I'd like to think that I am. And that, what else? Life is what? Short.
Uncertain.
And uncertain. So, if there's something I better do, should I put it off for next year? No. Live life to the fullest, right? Isn't that something that we all should do? So once you've put down some reasons why you felt like that the proudest accomplishment, is everybody working on this or no? Y'all just watching me? You're just watching me. You guys are lazy today. All right. So once you've found the reason why, that's after you've done that, so you've identified what? You've identified your proudest accomplishments, you've identified your reason why, and then next, from that, you can decide what led to your true wealth attribute. How did those things lead to your true wealth attribute, right? Putting myself through law school, I said it was persistence. It was self-reliance. It taught me the value of education, of being responsible, right? Married to Patty. What do you have to do in all marriages? you gotta compromise, don't you?
You got something from your parents that made it possible for you to do that.
I got something from my parents inside that made it possible for me to do that. In order to share my life and to be compromising. That's right. Although putting up with me is tough. Just ask any of my staff members back there; they'll tell you everything about it. Seeing my mom through her illness, what true wealth attribute did that teach me? Empathy, balance. What do I mean by balance, do you think? Balancing work and play, balancing family, balancing all those things, and awareness. So when you don't have to do this all now, obviously, and usually when we go through exercise like this, in fact, we'll talk about this at the end of the workshop, we'll give you an opportunity to spend more time with it one day if you want to. We're doing it rather quickly because I don't want to keep you all here indefinitely, because I know you guys want to get out to the nice weather that's going on. The first thing that you need to do when you're trying to decide what your true wealth attributes are is actually identifying them, don't you? You have to say, what is your strengths? What are your strengths? So that's part of the exercise. The bottom part of the exercise, you'll see at the bottom of the sheet, has to do with mentors. Right? Mentors who helped me and what I learned. One of my mentors was John Shepard. His father and uncle founded this firm, my law firm, our law firm, in 1924. And sometime in the 1960s, he took it over. And I came around sometime around 1990, 1991, thereabouts. And John turned part of his estate planning practice over to me back then. And he really taught me how to be a true lawyer. Some of you know John, right? Raise your hand. Some of you know John. John's been retired. Do you believe John's been retired 22 years now? I was a young man then. When I walked in the room, you guys used to say, "How old are you? How long you been out of law school?" Now you don't ask me that anymore. I don't know why. You know what I got for the first time not too long ago? I got, "Are you going to be around still practicing when I go?" And that's the first time I got that, and that just knocked me on my socks. Do I look that old now? Holy cow. So, in any event, John was a very, very important mentor to me. Because, you know, you learn in law school how to research statutes or how to look up cases, but they don't teach you really how to apply the law to a client situation, and they really don't teach you how to empathize with your client and come to an understanding of what they're trying to achieve and ask them the right questions of what they're trying to achieve, right? And then building something that does that in a very human way. So John, I like to say that John really taught me how to be a true lawyer. And that was an invaluable experience for me. I had a coach back in high school that would run us silly, and you all know what suicide drills are in basketball? You know, you run from baseline to baseline, then baseline to free throw, baseline to half court. He would run us till we threw up, literally. That was back in the day. You know, they wouldn't say no water and all that stuff. I'm old enough that that's what they did. You know, today everybody gets sued for that, wouldn't they? But he was a good coach, and he taught me about setting goals. And then my dad, of course. My dad had a lot of victories and a lot of defeats, and I learned from all of them. Don't you guys have similar mentors that you can point to? Anyone want to just bark one out? A neighbor. Tell me about that.
Well, I was newly married and young, and and the neighbors befriended my husband and I, and just were always there with little bits of advice and help.
Neighbors were there with bits of advice and helped when you first moved in.
Right.
That's good. Anyone else? Did you have a coach? Did you have a teacher? Anyone can point to a teacher that they had. Someone tell me about a teacher that taught them something that was invaluable, other than education directly. Anyone? Yes, sir.
I had one that taught me how to increase my self-confidence.
How so? How did the teacher teach you to increase your self-confidence?
By telling me about various examples of his experience and other people's experiences he knew, and what I should do and how I should evaluate that and practice it.
So the teacher gave you examples of how to become more self-confident, and that led to your self-confidence. That's good. That's good. Anyone else? Yeah, over here.
Power of positive thinking by Norman Peterson.
The book of Power of Positive Thinking got you thinking straight and more positive. That's a good one too. Yeah, over here.
I had a high school teacher that taught me no one can ever force you to do anything.
A high school teacher taught you no one could force you to do anything. In what way? How did they teach you that? An algebra teacher?
It had nothing to do with this phrase that I still remember.
Yeah.
Sometimes you hear people say, well, so-and-so made you do it. And that saying just comes back to my mind. Nobody can help her.
Know what? Yeah, you know, someone once taught me that you're the only one who's responsible for your happiness. Yeah. No one can tell. The question was he single? And after the comment, no one could tell you to do anything. Wait, there's one in the back. Did I see one in the back? Someone offering something? A mentoring example? No? That's good. In the back, yes.
Generally speaking, one's religion.
Religion, yeah. Your faith in God. Yeah, I put that down back on my sheet for when the loss of my friends. Yes?
I had a chemistry teacher in high school that was very vindictive and nasty. And he would say it didn't help me, but it did help me learn to get along with all kinds of people.
A chemistry teacher that was vindictive. Yeah, they have those books, you know, how to get along with bad people. So you had some real life experience in getting along with a vindictive teacher. According to my kids, all their teachers are vindictive. I don't understand that. Okay. What's the common thread of what these mentors have done to help us? Provide direction. What else? Increase our thinking ability. Inspired us. Built on their experience. All good things. Led by example. They communicated with us all, didn't they? And what did I talk about might have been lacking between you and your loved ones about your wealth? Communication. I'm starting you to think a little bit about this. So when we try to tie together what gave us our true wealth, what led to our success, can't we say that we have to communicate? But let me go through one negative example first. Okay, do you know who that thing is? That guy is? Any of you watch the Austin Power movies? The nemesis in the Austin Power movies is Dr. Evil, right? Right, Mike? Mike's a movie buff. He knows a lot of this more than I do. Dr. Evil has a mini-me, and that's a picture of mini-me. And the mistake that a lot of people make is that and I can fall into it too. And I'll give you a personal example of it. Obviously I put myself through college and law school. So when I was going through school and I was taking out student loans and I was working, I knew something, right? I knew that I better come out with a career that I could earn a living and raise a family with, didn't I? Right? So my experience is one of practical education, wouldn't you say? I got my accounting degree, and this is another thing that my dad mentored me about. And don't take this the wrong way if you're not an accounting major, but what he said is, he said, Craig, with an accounting degree, you can be a manager, or you can be in marketing, or you can be in anything else in business. But with a management degree, you can't be an accountant. So when we were deciding what business degree I was going after, he suggested accounting because he thought it was the most versatile of all of the business degrees. And it was also one that if I didn't go on to law school, if I couldn't afford it, I didn't want to take out those loans, that I would have a profession to fall back on. Good practical mentoring advice, isn't it? But at the time, though, my dad was also an accountant. Okay? He was creating a mini-me, wasn't he? In some respects. Now, flash forward 30-some years, and my daughter, Gabby, is going to be going to college next year, and she's an excellent student. Straight A student, really high SATs. She's getting scholarship offers. But does she want to go to the University of Florida? That would cost me next to nothing because I have a prepaid plan. No, Dad, I don't want to go. It's too big a school. I don't want to go. She wants to go to somewhere like Brandeis or Tufts or Emory or somewhere like that. And I don't know if you all have looked at tuition prices these days, but you all know where those are, don't you? They're shockingly expensive. And guess what Gabby wants to mentor in, or wants to major in? You're close, not law. Creative writing and Middle Eastern studies. Yeah, good estate plan for it. Now, so what do you think her practical dad, who had to, I've told you my life experience, right? What do you think her practical dad says to that? How are you going to pay back any loans that you take out? How are you, right? But let me tell you another story that I think of when I think of Gabby. My father was a talented artist as a high schooler, as an 18-year-old. And he was in high school in Gary, Indiana, Lew Wallace High School, if any of you know it. And the Chicago Institute of Art offered him a scholarship. And his parents said, his dad said, what are you going to be, a starving artist your whole life? So they said, go to Indiana University, the state school, and get a business degree. That's what he did. And I'll tell you, if Dad was here, he's home today, but if he was here, he'd tell you he wished he'd gone to the Chicago Institute of Art. Who knows? He may have made a fantastic living for himself. Maybe not as a Picasso or something, but he may have been a graphic design artist, a commercial artist. There are any number of occupations that he could have gone into where he would have been happy. Dad was never really happy in business. And he never really achieved the success that he probably would have had he been in a career that made him happy. Okay, so now Craig's balancing what? He's thinking of Dad's experience, and he's thinking of daughter's desire, and that's all formed by my own experience, right? So what do? I want her to go for it. Because I think that she's won state competitions in writing. I'm bragging a little bit. But who knows? Who knows where it leads her? But she ought to do something that makes her happy, shouldn't she? Because if I try to force her into something that makes her miserable, where's that going to go? So when we talk about true wealth, that's part of recognizing the gifts and the attributes of our loved ones, isn't it? So really where this is all going is, where do we go with this? I like to call this the Family Institute of Intergenerational True Wealth. Right? What you do is you go through the exercise of determining what your true wealth really is. You really can't start to help your loved ones impart your wisdom, transfer your true wealth to them without first identifying what you consider to be your own true wealth, right? Then you want to identify those that helped you get there. And then the final steps would really be to what? To communicate your wishes, right? Don't we all have desires for our kids? And for our loved ones, for our spouse, for our kids, for our loved ones? So let me ask you this question. What steps might you take? Does anyone have any thoughts? What steps could you take? Yeah.
Communication, family meetings.
Family meetings are very good. Family meetings. What else? Yeah, and John, that's where you're talking about using your resources in such a ways to impart your true wealth by setting up a 529 plan, because that's towards the value of education. Setting up 529 plans for your loved ones if you can afford something like that, certainly. What else? Anyone? What other things could we do that help us impart our true wealth? Yes?
We, all through the years, have given a certain percentage to either the church or missionaries or whatever. And we have told our kids, when we go, you take that money and give it to your people and keep it going to ours, but we want you to do it. You said, sure.
Yeah, you want them to follow your lead in charity.
That's right. But their decisions, not hang on to ours, let it be theirs.
Yeah, let me give you some examples of what some of you all have done. I'm not going to be specific to any of you, and frankly, it's hard for me to remember which one of you is doing which of these things, so I don't know anyway. But unless I go back and look at the file. But for example, I have one client who wanted to give their children an education, but on the other hand, they want them to work a little bit for it, kind of like the way I had to. So they set up a plan where they were going to give them so much out of a trust fund that they created, and then the rest of it they could still get, but they'd have to borrow it. And a payback schedule. And that could be dangerous. There's ways to deal with that. other clients in their estate plans have set up things, and by the way, we're not talking about this today because the law is too fresh and Mike and I are still going through it, but the 2012 Tax Act, you may know, increased estate exemptions to $5.25 million. That's huge. So a married couple together can shield $10.5 million from the tax man if they do their planning right. So you know what that does? A lot of people say, well, I don't need my trust anymore. I don't need to do any of this planning anymore. Actually, yes, you do. But what we can do now for you is so much more creative because we're not shackled by these tax laws anymore. We don't care if we get an estate tax charitable deduction in your estate, right? Because if your estate's under that threshold, doesn't matter. It's not going to be any tax anyway. But yet you can still build a charitable component into it and include your next generation. Like what I'm saying is, for example, with charities, in a charitable remainder trust, for example, there's certain things it has to have in order for you to get the charitable estate tax deduction. We don't care about that anymore if your estate's lower than the threshold, as long as the exemption stays where it is. I don't know if we all have confidence that that's going to happen or not, but let's assume that it will. The new laws actually give us all sorts of creativity that we can do with your planning, setting up family partnerships, setting up education funds, setting up all sorts of things that we didn't have before. So if this is spurning some interest in you, that's something that you may want to consider. And to wrap things up, you can do this on your own. You can do these exercises on your own. But what Mike and I decided to try to provide for some of you, and this is kind of like a pilot program, honestly, to see how it goes. But this little flyer here, did y'all think today's exercise was okay? Was it good? Yeah? Did it get you thinking about things you never thought about before? Or at least get you thinking in more detail than you used to about these sorts of things? Okay. For those of you who are interested, and this is going to be a smaller group setting. We're not going to accept more than 25 families. And by family, I mean family unit would be someone and one other loved one, or just someone by themselves. A client and one other loved one, or client and their spouse, for example. And what we're doing is a true wealth or false wealth full-day workshop. And you'll see in the workshop that we're going to have at one of the luxury hotels here. We're negotiating with the Hyatt, although we don't know which hotel it's going to be at yet. And you're going to come in the morning, we're going to have a continental breakfast set up for you. Yogurt, granola, that kind of stuff. The workshop will begin at 9. And you guys did part of the first module today, which is that I've come a long way, baby, to help identify what your true wealth really is. In Module 2, we're going to go through an exercise, and in a smaller setting, it's going to be a little bit easier for you to be more open and free with your discussion. It's going to be, you're going to have more time to fill out the modules. We're going to have breakout sessions to discuss them, so it's not going to be like today. It's going to be a lot more intimate and friendly. Module 2 will be exploring your family dynamics. So you can actually think about, in really real terms, what your hopes and what your dreams are for your loved ones. It could be your children, could be your grandchildren, could be anybody, could be a friend, whoever it is. Module 3 will be discovering my family's unique abilities. You know, kind of like me with my daughter or thinking about my father. You can't make them your mini-me. What you have to do is think about what makes them them, what makes them unique. What are their attributes? What are their true wealth? We'll have lunch. It'll be a hot lunch. Get to sit and talk for a little while. And then in Module 4, we're going to identify your family's true wealth. Because most of the time, like, I consider myself to be much stronger with Mike and my other law partners and my team of staff than just me by myself, right? How in the world would I put even this on without all those folks, right? A lot of you have some really powerful things going on in your families. And if you only can get together and communicate them and actually decide how to take it to that next level, there's some real possibilities to do that. And the tax laws don't get in our way anymore. There's a lot of opportunity here. So in Module 4, we're going to identify your family's true wealth. In Module 5, we're going to talk about building a system that you can take back to your family to talk about these things. And then the next step beyond that, for those that want to take that next step beyond this, is a family retreat, where we have a discussion with your family members. And you can choose to share as much as you want to share about whatever you want to share, or you can choose not to. But that's the next step beyond this. So for those of you who are interested in taking what we've learned today to the next level, look at this. We have a sign-up sheet. We are charging for this workshop because it is a full day, and we're spending money to create it. The first 25 family units that sign up for it will accept in that workshop. On your way out, please fill out your little evaluation form. Tell us how we did today. If you are a client of our firm, do not complete the shaded area. That's only if you're a guest. If you're a guest of one of our clients, please complete that shaded area. If you are a client of our firm, you don't need to complete that shaded area. And on your way out, when you give the yellow sheet to my staff, we have our newest video. How many of you were here in November for my What Happens If You Should Become Incapacitated workshop? Please take your video on the way out. Remember, that was a workshop on what happens when your successor trustees have to step in and act for you. Sound good? So get your video on the way out. We need your yellow sheet so we know who we gave this to, because those annual maintenance clients who aren't here, we're going to send this in the mail to. Sound good? Was this okay today? Did we have fun? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming.